What's up, everybody? This is Asif Badi from the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Day 2, joint practice number 2 has been wrapped up by the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. And today was the day the Philadelphia Eagles won and the defense responded. I'm also going to break down why some of the picks on offense might be more encouraging than I initially thought, and why potentially this team, if they continue on the track the way they're going, might win more games than I initially thought. With that being said, let's get right into it.
It's a Philly thing. You ready? Let's go.
Okay, so as mentioned before, the Philadelphia Eagles responded better to today's practice than they did yesterday's practice. They came out with more energy and came out with a little bit more fight, to the point where Saquon Barkley was actually throwing fisticuffs against some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball versus the New England Patriots. But really, the point of today was to highlight some of the key players that stood out, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, in Tariq Woolen and Jalyx Hunt. First, let me start off with Jalyx Hunt, because this dude, holy crap, what a find he has been for this Howie Roseman front office and Vic Fangio's defense. I mean, my goodness, this guy was a third-round pick, quoted as a project player, mind you, and he has come into Philadelphia. And quite frankly, I don't know about you, he might be the best edge guy in the locker room right now. He might be better than Grenard. He's definitely better than Nolan Smith, and I know he's better than AJ Epinesa. Jalyx Hunt, I mean, you got Quinyon, you got Cooper, Zach Bond. Dare I say he might be the fourth or third best defender on this football team? I mean, Jalyx Hunt is sensational. Do you realize last season, in the 2025 year, he led the team not only in sacks, but interceptions? That's phenomenal for a second-year player. Hell, that's phenomenal for any player that you put in an NFL locker room. And this guy's entering year 3 with something to prove, with a little bit of edge. Hell, the New England Patriots, the players and the reporters out there watching this guy play, they were literally saying, quote, 58's a problem. That guy's gonna be a problem. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He's only scratching the surface. That's the scary part about Jalyx Hunt. He hasn't even cracked the prime of his career as an NFL player. The converted safety to linebacker who's now playing, quite frankly, with the perfect coordinator for his skill set. Literally a carbon copy and a souped up version of Andrew Van Ginkel. Or Andrew Van Ginkel, whatever his name is. The linebacker from Minnesota who's a stud. Point being is, the ability to be able to rush the passer, to set the edge, to play against the run, and also to drop back into coverage and cover tight ends if need be, is the perfect player for this defensive scheme. And the physical ability and the size that this guy has. He's bigger than Nolan Smith. He's bigger than Jonathan Grenard. He's probably as big as AJ Epinesa in terms of his ability to actually set the edge. This guy's a stud player. And listen, my bold prediction for Jalyx Hunt, this guy's going to get 10 plus sacks this year. That's my bold prediction for Jalyx Hunt. He's one of the bright spots that I believe this team is going to be able to showcase this season and potentially be one of the leaders on this defense that can help us win more than my initial prediction of 10 ball games. I had it at the beginning of the year as a rebuild year, and I still believe we are in rebuilding mode until further notice. Don't get it twisted. But a rebuild for the Philadelphia Eagles is not quite the same as a rebuild for, let's say, the Atlanta Falcons, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, hell, even the New York Giants. The rebuild is not the same in terms of the standard. Philadelphia is too talented to win less than 8 games. However, the offensive scheme that they're implementing is going to take time to develop. But with the defensive players and the prowess that we got on that side of the ball, led by Vic Fangio, Clint Hurt, Bobby King, Jalyx Hunt, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. I mean, the guys on the front line, Nolan Smith, they, in practice, the training camp, the joint practice, Everyone has been saying these guys look like they're getting after it. And that's a great, great sign because Philadelphia, as we all know, has made it cool to build a team through the trenches. And that's what they have done. And this year, at least this offseason, based on what we've seen and what we've heard, everyone on this defensive line seems to be up to snuff this year. And Jalyx Hunt might be the guy that's standing out amongst the crowd more than anybody on this defense. And that's a tremendous sign. Because if he is somehow your best player on defense, and you got players like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Zach Bond, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Jahad Campbell, Tariq Woolen, who we're going to get to in just a moment, and Andrew Makuba, and Marcus Epps, those guys are underneath Jalyx Hunt. You got a problem if you're the NFL. I will tell you that. Because they got their teeth kicked in the first joint practice, this defense. They came out and responded today like champions do. Like a hard-nosed defensive mindseted team would do. And that's a tremendous sign for anybody who's rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. And another thing about the Philadelphia Eagles, it's not just Jalyx Hunt that's been standing out in the crowd. It's a guy like Tariq Woolen in the defensive back room. And he's been a welcomed addition here in Philadelphia. Tariq Woolen had a really, really big play in the red zone against the Patriots in the joint practice, capping off the day with a pick six to seal the win for the defense. And this is the type of play that we all as Eagle fans are highly anticipating Tariq Woolen to make throughout the year. The physical gifts that this guy has, it's as good as anybody in the NFL. As he came into the NFL as a rookie in Seattle, he had like 6+ interceptions and led the league in INTs. But since then, he's had a little bit of a drop-off in his production, ultimately leading to his exit from Seattle and signing a 1-year deal here in Philadelphia. Now, since minicamp and since training camp, Tariq Woolen has been a stud. All beat reporters and anybody who's been associated with the Philadelphia Eagles have been telling us and telling you that Tariq Woolen has been a stud. He has been exceptional. And remember, this is cornerback 2 we're talking about because we know how good Quinyon is. We know how good Q is. We know how good Cooper is. So it's really the question mark at cornerback 2 in the defensive back room that really can make or break the back end of the defense. Last season, Adoree Jackson was the guy that we had at cornerback 2 that we said, hey, we have a question mark here with this guy. And as the season went on, and as you got better players on the defensive line with Jaden Phillips and the defense started taking shape, you ultimately saw Adoree Jackson actually play fairly well towards the back end of the season. Is that the same transition? Is that the same track that Tariq Woolen could be on with this defense? Everyone in Philly land believes so, and I'm one of those people. I think when you have a player who's got the physical gifts that Tariq Woolen has, with the size, the speed, the athleticism, in a year where he has to go out there and prove that he's worth big money. Remember, he signed a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles, ultimately showing that not many other people were willing to sign him long term. The physical gifts that guy has, surrounded by the exceptional talent, not only just in the front 7, but on the back end, he has a unique opportunity to go out and showcase to the NFL just how much he's worth. We know he's not going to get a lot of opportunities in terms of being a shutdown corner. Quinyon Mitchell is going to be the guy where not many people are going to throw the ball to. Cooper DeJean, would you rather test him or would you rather test Tariq Woolen? I think teams are going to ultimately decide to test Tariq Woolen. So there's going to be days where he's going to get beat and he's going to have players get the best of him, as you saw on the first day of the joint practice with the Patriots. But then there's also going to be moments, and I think more often than not, where Tariq Woolen showcases his ability and proves why the chance that we took, that Howie took, I shouldn't say we, that Howie took on this guy is going to pay off dividends. Tariq Woolen is going to get a lot of opportunity from other players because most people are going to throw to his side. So the opportunity for him to get a lot of interceptions, to show the production for the rest of the NFL, to ultimately land a very large contract, It's there. And as I mentioned, on a prove-it deal, surrounded by exceptional talent, on a 1-year deal, ultimately what I think it does to a player like that, it gives him a self-realization, and it gives him an opportunity to bet on himself. And when most players bet on themselves in a talented locker room like this, they ultimately can get maximized with their ability. And when you're coached by a coach like Vic Fangio, and you have the talented guys in the defensive line coached by Clint Hurt, and the linebackers coached by Bobby King, and a defensive back room that's got Cooper DeJean, that's got Quinyon Mitchell, Andrew Makuba. Ultimately, you have to look at yourself and say, hey, I'm surrounded by some really damn good players. I got to come in and lock in. And the joint practice on day 2 for the Philadelphia Eagles, Tariq Woolen showed what he can do when he's locked in. All over guys, keeping up with people stride for stride, being able to make plays on the football. Those are the things that we would want from a guy like Tariq Woolen, particularly at cornerback 2. Ultimately, what this could lead to for the Philadelphia Eagles is a chance for this defense to really solidify themselves as one of the better units in football. It already is there. Us Eagle fans truly believe that this is one of the best defensive units in the NFL. But this year, we are all anticipating, entering year 3 with the Vic Fangio scheme, that this defense is going to take it to the next level. And Tariq Woolen could be one of those guys that ultimately helps us achieve that goal with his exceptional play. If he's exceptional, all of a sudden, the prediction that I had in regards to how far this team could go, I would have to modify it. Which now leads me to the last topic of the show, and that's ultimately what this team can do with not only this defensive prowess and the defensive talent that we have here, but ultimately the progression that Jalen Hurts is making going forward in this offense. What I think they can do on the offensive side of the ball to supplement this defense might be the key to ultimately winning a lot of big games. Lastly, we're going to be talking about Jalen Hurts and this offense, as they had a little bit of a better output today as compared to the joint practice that they had yesterday. While he did throw another couple of interceptions, and that's something that you don't necessarily love to see, ultimately what you have to look at is where those interceptions are coming from, along with the touchdowns that are coming from this offense. Most of the passing touchdowns that we have seen, at least maybe not by statistical measures, because I haven't necessarily kept track statistically where he's throwing touchdowns, but every time I look at X, every time I see a tweet, every time I see a report coming out, it's always a touchdown that you say, hey, Jalen Hurts completes a deep pass over the middle. Jalen Hurts completes a touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts completes a touchdown pass across the back of the end zone through the middle of the field to Hollywood Brown. You see a slant to Devontae Smith. You see this there. Everything towards the middle of the field. Even the interceptions. Hits Dontavian Wicks in the hands. Ultimately dropped. Becomes a tipped interception. Tries to hit a throw to Hollywood Brown over the middle of the field. Turns into an interception due to a poor route or a tipped pass. Same with Britton Covey. All these things, you look at it and you say, it's all over the middle of the field. Now, for me, I'm not necessarily somebody who is going to go rah-rah for Jalen, right? I believe he's a really good quarterback. I do. And I trust him in big spots. I trust him when the backs are against the wall and we need a drive. He's the guy. He's a guy that can get it done. I know that. I've seen it with my eyes, and we've seen him rise in big games. That's not my concern. My concern with this whole offseason, it's not even with him. It's how the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to build around him. They're trying to ultimately showcase and develop a skill set that we haven't seen Jalen Hurts prove that he can do consistently over the course of 17 ball games. And that's utilizing the middle of the field without the high uptick in turnovers. Right? Now, I don't believe that's his fault. I believe a lot of the development or lack thereof of the quarterback position in Philadelphia Eagles, it's Philadelphia Eagles' fault. Like, I don't know if Nick Sirianni has proven that he could develop a quarterback. I don't believe Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie have done a good job in terms of developing the quarterback. We've seen every quarterback here regress when they get the big contract, right? And that's ultimately through the design of what the team does. But that's neither here nor there. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent. The point that I'm trying to make here is that all of the bad interceptions, all of the throws that are great, have all been over the middle. You don't find that to be an odd thing? I don't necessarily find it odd. I'm looking at myself here because I've been critical, and I've been somebody who has, I guess this offseason, been a little bit more doom and gloom than most Eagle fans, just based on what we've seen. And for those of you who tell me that like you can't take a lot of stock in what you see in the offseason, I find that to be bullshit. You have to take some stock. Things matter in the offseason because you're working through things. You ultimately have to see some sort of progression and ultimately see some good results. And not that we haven't seen some good results here, but again, when you show me the preseason game and you tell me, oh no, that's just the backups, that doesn't matter. That's a majority of your roster. Like the guys that you saw in that Saturday game against the Baltimore Ravens, that's a majority of the roster. We tend to forget that outside of the 22 starters on the field, you have 35 people that you have to find a roster spot for. And on that Saturday, they all looked awful. They all did except for a handful of guys. Again, I say all that because what the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to do with Jalen Hurts is asking him to do something he hasn't necessarily done in his career. And is that putting him in a bad spot? Is that putting him in a position where not only are you asking him to be a square peg and be fit into a round hole, but then you ultimately take away his best pass catcher and ultimately get rid of one of the offensive line coaches that's probably the greatest the NFL has ever seen, which has been responsible for a top 10 rushing attack throughout his career. And you tell him not only are we going to get rid of these Hall of Fame talented guys or, superstar caliber guys for you, but by the way, we're going to revamp the whole playbook. We're going to give you a new offensive coordinator once again, completely change the terminology and the scheme and the philosophy. Oh, and by the way, if you don't play well, your contract is kaput. Goodbye. We're ultimately going to try to find a guy who can get it done. Does that sound like a position that puts Jalen Hurts in a successful spot? No. And that's been my biggest gripe here. It's why I've been so critical. It's why I've been so bombastic about this approach. But the fact that he keeps attacking the middle of the field, the fact that all of the touchdowns have been over the course of the middle of the field, why all of the interceptions have been over the middle of the field, every throw, essentially, he has been keying and maximizing the reps over the middle of the field. To me, that's not something that he's doing just out of the design of the offense. I personally think he's being stubborn and very intentional about making sure every throw he makes is over the middle of the field. Because we know he's not playing in the preseason. That's not what Philadelphia does. They don't play their starters. So this is the time to maximize his reps. And that's ultimately what he's done and what he's been doing. And again, I don't care so much about tracking the stats of interceptions, touchdowns, this and this. You ultimately want to see how the process and the operation works, but you also don't want to see him throw 4 or 5 interceptions every practice, okay? Like the first joint practice, he wasn't that great. I know the interceptions were not his fault, but he wasn't that great. The second joint practice, a lot better. A little bit more efficient, a little bit more focused, a little bit more intentional with the ball. Those are the things that you want to see, okay? And then when you couple that with how dominant the run game has looked these past couple of days, now you have to look at it and say to yourself, maybe the expectation for Jalen Hurts isn't necessarily to be the high, prolific passer, that everybody has been thinking about with this philosophical change. Ultimately, it's just to be able to convert third and shorts through the air if need be. That's a lot more of an easier pill to swallow for me than it would be if you asked him to be the passer that guys like Patrick Mahomes is, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar, Drake May, Justin Herbert. I mean, give me another quarterback who's a prolific thrower, of the Dak Prescott even, right? Jared Goff. Like, if you asked me if he has to be that kind of quarterback in order for this team to succeed, I think you're asking for an uphill battle. But if you're ultimately asking me to say, hey, be efficient on third down, use your legs if need be, don't turn the ball over, and when you get chunk yardage, take advantage of the defense, especially over the middle of the field. If you could guarantee me that he's more prolific over the middle of the field than he has been in years past, all of a sudden this offense and this team, it doesn't even have to be from, it doesn't have to be like a top 10 offense. It just has to be from like 15th to 20th. If you can give me that plus what we expect on defense, all of a sudden this team is cooking with grease, and there's not a lot of teams in the NFL that have the talent level of Philadelphia. And that's ultimately what Eagle fans, optimistic Eagle fans, unlike myself, ultimately believe is going to happen. They believe that this team has the opportunity to go out there and really make a run. I find it really tough to believe that, considering the philosophical change, the talent deficit that we have on the offensive side of the ball, and the fact that we have a first-time play caller in Sean Mannion, who may be good over the course of the year, but as of right now hasn't shown that he can actually do the job effectively. I know it's still a work in progress, but for heaven's sake, we need to have some sort of, buffer in terms of being a Super Bowl team or just firing the coordinator and scapegoating other guys when the players have to be accountable themselves, right? So that's ultimately my takeaway from this training camp thus far, the joint practice. I love the fact that Jalen Hurts is throwing over the middle of the field a little bit more. I like that he's learning how to process a little bit better, but still, this team is in rebuild mode because of the mindset. Ultimately, I think we are going to win about 10 games based on this philosophical change, but if it means that we win more on the back end and we get into the playoffs a little bit more hot, now we're having a different conversation. What say you, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Let me know if you believe that this Philadelphia Eagles team is on the right track to being a Super Bowl contender, or if you believe the take that I have is that they're in a rebuilding year and that they're just looking to win 9-10 games and ultimately get this offense back on track a little bit more. Hit your like and subscribe on the way out for me as a favor to the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Thank you for locking in with me, and we will see you back here next time, everybody. Take care of yourself. Hey, thank you so much for getting through this episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want more content just like this, hit the subscribe button below to lock in with me. Thank you so much for your support on the opposite side of the camera, and check us out on other platforms in the description box below. And we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.